Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the short delay, the few seconds after the song finished. I am Erica, your host for the day. And of course, I am joined today by, let me get back into everything. I am just completely scatterbrained today. Let's see. Let's go ahead and start with Stoner. Say hello, Stoner.
Good evening, everyone.
And then, of course, just a couple states south of Stoner, we have Lizzie. Say hello, Lizzie.
Good evening.
And of course, we have our resident Serbian from the former Soviet state of Serbia. Please say hello, Mali.
Hello.
And then, of course, we have our resident Kanakistani from the current Soviet state of Kanakistan. Please say hello, Dale.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
And with that, I have completely forgot to do a couple things with OBS. It doesn't matter. It really does not matter. How is everyone tonight?
Can't complain.
Pain.
Well,
I'm all right.
how about you?
Yeah, how
I'm
are you,
not-
Erica?
I'm not doing too bad, except for I tried to make a pizza and then I put a hole in it while it was
Don't
in the
fuck
oven.
the pizza.
What happens to a pizza if you put a hole in it? Does it not?
It does. It
Great.
doesn't come out right. I made it too thin in one spot. So I will be eating through parts of this live stream.
Oh,
So today we have on the docket. First up is SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Who knows about the Vanderstock V Garland case?
I probably know of it as it's one of the gun cases up at the Supreme Court, but I'm not sure which one by name. Is it the ATF one? Like the is it like the pistol brace one?
And it's not the pistol brace one. It is the self-made firearms one.
Oh.
Are we talking like
At
the
least-
3D
At
printer
least
guns?
I think it is. 3D printer guns, 80% lowers, things like that. Vanderstock V Garland FPC lawsuit. Yeah, so it's about 80% lowers. This started because the ATF decided they were going to try to categorize 80% lower kits as readily convertible firearms.
So for those who might not know, what is an 80% lower?
An 80% lower. Damn it. An 80% lower is a lower receiver that has not been finished. Only about 80% of the machining work that needs to be done on it has been done. So, for instance, you can have an 80% Glock, you can have an 80% AR-15. There are holes that have to be drilled. There are slots that have to be drilled. That sort of stuff.
Isn't this like those guns that don't have serial numbers because they're not technically
Yes,
guns?
they do not have serial numbers, because they are not considered firearms under the law.
Based. So it's a ghost gun.
It's not.
And I will.
It's an unserialized firearm.
But when you finish it, it becomes a
I'm-
ghost gun, right?
I do not agree with the idea of it's a ghost gun. Any firearm,
Okay.
any single firearm that has ever been put into circulation, even with a serial number, becomes a ghost gun after its first owner.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ATF is not allowed to track movements of firearms via a registry after it's been sold by a private party.
Really? How the fuck do they track it then?
They don't.
They
They're
don't.
not supposed to.
What? Here in Serbia, you have to report to the police that you fucking have a gun, that you want to sell a gun, and that the deal is happening and shit.
It's one of the reasons why the U.S. is better than Serbia when it comes to guns.
Absolutely, but like, what the fuck? Insane.
If anything, what the fuck, Serbia?
Well, it's Serbia. The government hates the people. What do you expect?
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about the current U.S. government.
Yeah. At least it's
Okay.
not run by mobsters like in Serbia.
It's
This-
just run by people in a retirement home.
Eh.
This started a couple years ago. I'm still stuffing my face. Don't fucking at me. And it started because the ATF decided to recategorize 80% lowers as readily convertible firearms. Specifically, 80% lower kits, in which when you buy the kit, you get the upper parts, like the bolt carrier, that sort of shit, the gas block, you get the unfinished lower, you get a lower parts kit, which includes things like the hammer, the trigger spring, that sort of shit, the safety, the pistol grip, the buffer tube, buffer spring, buffer, and a buttstock. That is a complete 80% parts kit. The only thing that you have to do is drill out a couple pockets, drill out a couple holes, and then put all of the parts together. But see, it's not easy to mill these lowers. At least not the AR-15 lowers. So you have to put some significant work into making that 80% lower functional.
Is this done by like a credible, high quality company, or is this done like in a basement?
Milling out your own 80% lower?
No. The parts, making it an 80%. Is this done in a factory, or is this done in a basement?
Oh, it's done in factories, but you can do it in a basement. There is a machine made by a pedophile called the Ghost Gunner. Cody Wilson has been at the forefront of 3D printed firearms for
And to be
over
clear,
a
Cody Wilson is the pedophile.
Unfortunately, yes.
He's been at the forefront of 3D printed firearms since the early 2010s. He's one of the people that designed the Liberator, which is a single shot 22 pistol that will fall apart after you fire its first shot.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that.
It was like
So,
the
when you
first kind of big 3D printed gun.
Mm-hmm.
When you said Liberator, I was thinking of the World War II one made by the French, which was a piece of
So-
shit.
So, Around 2018, he came out with a machine he called the Ghost Gunner. And its purpose was designed to
Gun ghosts.
finish an 80% lower for you, be it a Glock or, an 80% AR-15 lower. No, there's not any images yet, Z.
Of the ghost gunner.
Of anything on the screen yet. I'm just talking.
Oh.
So he created the Ghost Gunner. It was originally designed to finish an 80% lower. The most recent version of the Ghost Gunner 3, will mill out solid block, like solid billet aluminum from a single block into an actual functional lower receiver.
Really?
Yes.
Jeez. But like it's aluminum, so it's not that durable, right?
Huh?
It's aluminum, so it's not as durable as like a real like.
Most
What are guns made from?
most AR-15 lowers are aluminum. Most of them are billet aluminum.
Oh.
You don't have to have anything especially strong for a lower receiver on an AR-15. You could probably get away with casting a lower receiver for an AR. And cast alloys are known to be extremely brittle.
Huh.
So this all started because the ATF decided they wanted to reclassify 80% lowers as readily convertible firearms, which was bullshit. We all know it was bullshit.
So what does it mean if the ATF classifies something as a readily convertible firearm?
It means they get to regulate it.
In what way? Like, what? Like, is it now not legal to possess, or what exactly happens?
Well, the ATF or the AFT, they get to regulate interstate commerce when it comes to alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. These three-letter agencies like the FDA, the ATF, the APA, or the EPA, they get to regulate interstate commerce under the powers that they've been given by the legislature. So the ATF gets to regulate firearms.
All right.
And the way this works is basically the ATF gets to look at the law and say that part of the law is ambiguous. And so we get to define that. Because that's the power that they've been given by Congress. But they have to go through several steps in order to define certain things. The major argument with the ATF is they didn't go through the logical outgrowth of their rulemaking procedure laid out by the APA. Let's see. Rulemaking APA. What is the APA? The Administrative Procedures Act. It applies to formal rulemaking, which is a trial-like procedure that involves recorded hearings. The APA defines a rule as a statement from an agency that has general applicability and future effect. The statement must be adopted to implement or make specific the law that the agency enforces or administers. Therein lies the main complaint. It doesn't make the law specific. It changes the law. They can't do that. Because the law was already set.
Right.
But it wasn't even set by the Congress. The law about 80% lowers was set by the court. The court came up with the courts came up with the definition of what an 80% lower is. It cannot be considered a firearm in any way, shape, or form if the lower receiver, the firearm, is not more than 80% complete. That's where the 80% term came in.
Has this been adjudicated by the Supreme Court yet, or has this just been lower courts that have decided this?
It's lower courts because in the past, everyone knew, hey, we don't want to fuck this up and take it to the Supreme Court. But it was a consensus across the board throughout all circuits. And 80% lower is not, never has been, and never will be a readily convertible firearm.
Well, it seems the ATF has decided to fuck all that over.
The ATF decided to fuck around and they found out. So, in the Fifth Circuit, Vanderstock brought a case against Garland and the ATF. And soon other companies joined on. One of them being Tactical Machining, another being 80% Firearms, or Polymer 80. And in that case, the Fifth Circuit finally issued a blanket injunction against the ATF and said, no, fuck you. You can't do this shit. You're done. It should have just stayed there. It really should have just stayed there because now Merrick Garland and his gloriously stupid set of lawyers fighting this case are going to lose this in front of the Supreme Court. You do not take a case like this, a precedent-setting case like this, in front of the Supreme Court because it's going to screw you. Mm-hmm. But the ATF is screwed.
Good.
Discuss. I will be right back.
All right. I for one am very excited for Clarence Thomas to do to the ATF what he did to New York State over in Bruin a couple years ago. Personally, I think they're kind of really stupid if they think they're gonna get they're gonna get any result that's anything different than what they got in Bruin, which was just fuck you no. But anyways,
I'll be honest, I haven't really been paying attention to these gun laws, but I think the sooner that we all are able to print our own guns, the sooner we'll have to actually handle our issue of kids shooting up schools. by addressing it instead of pretending that gun control is going to solve the violence problem we have.
I fucking love you. Which is an ironic thing to say because more of your friends are anti-gun, and I keep getting blocked by them.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm universally beloved by certain types of people, and then like people think like they get into being my friend and they're like, "What do you mean you tolerate other viewpoints?" And then they have to like deal with that about me, and sometimes they don't survive being my friend because I'm not going to cut somebody off for having good sense or thinking about something for a different position than I do. But also, people on Twitter aren't my friend. I mean, like, I'm not saying I wouldn't make friends with people on Twitter. It's just like I don't have that kind of relationship with the majority of my followers.
Fair point.
Jesus Christ, what is with all of these porn accounts fucking liking my comments?
They must think you're sexy.
They're bots.
The other day, I said to some turfs that my pussy was factory installed, not aftermarket, and I got the most interesting porn bots.
Makes sense that you would get porn bots for such a comment.
Listen, it's not my fault if I speak the truth in plain man's language, okay? Factory installed, not aftermarket. I don't really care where you got your pussy from. It's fine. I'm just saying where I got mine from.
So, anyways, back to that case over Vanderstock v Garland. Have they gone through oral arguments yet?
No, and in fact, this is being taken for next session.
Oh.
Which means we likely will not get any sort of decision until next year.
It's unfortunate. Have any of the other gun cases before the Supreme Court had oral arguments yet? Like, for example, the pistol brace one?
That I'm not aware of. Let's see. No, when it comes to firearms, I have made it very clear, especially this week. Stoner, in fact, roped me in on someone's comment. I don't remember who the fuck this person was. Let me see if I can get to it. I believe the person's name was Tom.
Yeah, that's him.
Is he a FUD?
No, he's an anti-gunner. He wants to have all weapons banned.
It's even worse than a FUD.
Okay, so this was in response to an account named Defensive Gun Use. Their post says, "Woman arms herself to drive, becomes enraged at another driver, shoots him, now faces several felony charges in Noblesville, Indiana." Tom decided to say, "The consequence we are seeing," you know what? Let me go ahead and put this up on the screen for everyone. There we go. "The consequence we are seeing of more gun carrying by people who should never get close to a gun." And here's where Stoner jumps in. "What part of shall not be infringed do these wannabe tyrants not comprehend? They must have eaten lead paint chips in their youth."
Oh god, he's gonna bring up that fucking first couple of...
Which he does. Include the first two clauses if you're going to quote the Second Amendment. Don't quote it out of context. Okay, fine. Fine. You want to go there? I'll fucking go there. You want context, Tom? Here we go for the millionth fucking time for people that are dumber than crayon eaters. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Zero context. Zero context in those words. So let's break down the actual context of this amendment. In 1791, when the Bill of Rights was ratified, we had finished a war with Britain and had moved from Articles of Confederation to a Constitution. The majority of the Founding Fathers were heavily influenced by who? John Locke, who was one of the most influential philosophers of the period. Locke posed a singular idea that grew into the U.S. That idea was that for a group to have any right, the individual must first have a more expanded right. You take a look at the First Amendment. Who are the press? It's the people. Any group in the Bill of Rights that does not say the people is a segmented group of choice, free from government intervention, which is what the Bill of Rights is all about to begin with. It lays very strict guidelines of when and how the government is allowed to interfere in the lives of individuals or the groups that they may make up. Let's break down the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia. It means a group of people who choose to train and be proficient with firearms for the purpose of defense of those less able to defend themselves. Moving on, being necessary to the security of a free state. Being necessary to the security of the group of people that are either unable or choose not to be proficient in defense of self or others. The right of the people. The right of any and all people who could make up either group of people in the prefacing clause. To keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Means to own and carry any weapon capable of use in waging war shall not be infringed. Let's put it all together. A group of people who choose to train and be proficient with firearms for the purpose of defense of those less able to defend themselves being necessary to the security of the group of people that are either unable or choose not to be proficient in defense of self or others, the right of any and all people who could make up either group of people in the prefacing clause to own and carry any weapon capable of use in waging war shall not be infringed. I don't know about you, Tom, but that sounds much more long-winded than a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Need I go on? Because this horse doesn't seem to be anywhere near lifeless, and I have plenty of stick to go.
Did he respond?
No, he never responded.
Yeah, of course.
And in fact, he's been quite silent on just about everything for days. Let's see. He commented on the... No, he just retweeted...
Newest IRS or ATF agent.
Uh-huh. And let's see. Sad commentary. I guess certain justices will take whatever path is necessary to arrive at predictable conclusions or rulings. Let's see. What's this about? This strikes me as a really good point. The increasing number of historians involved in excavating actual historical evidence in litigation means the court will find it increasingly difficult to rebut the evidence, and so will simply ignore it on the way to its desired outcome. What is that all in reference to?
Yeah.
That would probably be in reference to the Trump debacle.
Yeah.
Let's see.
There was a picture of a dog that got shot at the top of that.
This one?
No, the previous tweet you were reading.
Oh.
That dog. That's the dog. The boy dog.
Hey, Stoner, we're getting feedback from Z's phone.
Hey, Z. Wait, hold up. How are we getting feedback from her phone when she's not even on?
Well, well, I'm saying we can hear her watching the stream.
Oh, she's not. Oh, she's got her headphones in. What you're hearing is her playing Cyberpunk.
Well, I could very clearly hear myself.
Sorry to cut this short, but I think I'm gonna sleep.
Alright.
Okay, you go
Have a
ahead
good
and you
night.
get some sleep, Molly.
Thanks.
Yeah. For those of you listening who don't know, it's currently what 12:35 a.m.
35.
11:35.
Yeah. So unfortunately, all these time zone differences make it a bit different. Make it somewhat difficult.
Yeah, and work.
That's true. So have a good night, Molly, and we shall see you later.
Thanks,
Good
you
night.
too, guys.
Sweet dreams.
So,
Alright.
ever since I posted that to Tom, he's been radio silent on this post.
Interesting.
He was all set to fight this out with Stoner. I don't think he wants to smoke.
Nope.
Well, Erica's my big gun.
I'm the big gun. Okay. So, Dexter Taylor. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows who Dexter Taylor is?
I do.
I don't.
Eagerly awaiting you telling me.
Dexter Taylor is a man who lives in what's that suburb of the Bronx? He's a resident of New York from a small suburb of the Bronx, who several years ago decided it wasn't safe to live in New York City anymore, and he was going to start building his own firearms. In which case, he bought a 3D printer, he bought a bunch of parts kits, and he started printing and building his own firearms. The local police noticed firearms parts getting shipped to him, got a warrant, raided his house or apartment, and they charged him with unlawful possession of firearms. This man had never before been convicted of a crime. And yet, he has been convicted, found guilty by Judge Abina Darka, or Darkay, or whatever the fuck her name is. I don't care about the name. I care about the simple fact that this woman thinks that the law doesn't apply to New York. They've had their ass whooped once in the past couple years when it comes to firearms law. They set the precedent of text history and tradition. I don't think they very much so liked the fact that they set precedent. 2 more, please. I don't think they liked the fact that they set precedent. But apparently she wants to set precedent again.
Yep.
I think she wants to get reamed by the SCOTUS.
Mhm.
Discuss. I will be right back.
Well, I guess it is as Erica said, though I will take a different position and say I think New York actually really wants to set more precedent because they keep pulling this shit. If they didn't want to set precedent, they would not be doing this shit again. But they
I
keep
agree
doing
with that take.
Yes. So seems they're really excited to just set more pro-gun precedent from district courts, appeals courts, the Supreme Court, and I'm all here for it.
Well, as much as I'm all here for it, I really want people to understand when it comes to firearms, it doesn't matter if it's fully automatic. It doesn't matter if it's semi-automatic. Doesn't matter if it's bolt action, break action. The simple fact of the matter is, it's all legal. The only reason why we have laws that say it's not is because prior generations decided to cripple us for their own feeling of safety.
Yep.
I hate boomers.
It's not
See,
even boomers. I think it's when did the NFA wasn't that in like the 1920s?
1930s, 1938.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to be smart.
Yeah, the boomers have their own. The boomers have their own problems, but the NFA, thankfully, is not one of them.
But listen, automatic firearms weren't regulated in the U.S. until 1986.
Was that the GCA?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I guess that is partially the boomers' fault.
The
I thought it was the
NFA,
NFA that regulated all that stuff.
the NFA regulated short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, and AOWs.
AOWs?
Any other weapon.
Oh. Wait, would
Oh shit!
any other weapon encompass every type of gun?
This one is still good.
They're the same ones.
Say again?
Wouldn't any other weapon mean any other gun?
No. See, there are things that you can attach to, say, like an AR-15, that in
Grenade
most cases
launchers.
that in most cases would make it illegal, but under certain circumstances it would be completely legal and you wouldn't have to register it.
I see.
So the NFA kicked this all off, and the hilarious thing about it is that it was proposed by, guess who?
FDR?
No, the NRA.
Why am I not surprised?
Why do you
And-
think they call it the negotiating rights away?
It's a good one. I mean, I'm kind of surprised, but at the same time, I'm also completely not surprised.
And so, this whole witch hunt surrounding the NRA over the past couple decades, it's just all smoke and mirrors. No one gives a fuck. It's just a ghost It's a, someone that they can point at and scream. The NRA hasn't done shit for the Second Amendment. They've only done shit against it.
Well, you have people like FPC. They've done more for Second Amendment rights and done in its whole career.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They also have a much better Twitter game too.
Oh, yeah.
They do not fuck around.
I think I would say that the FPC is a symptom of the building resentment that's been growing in this country for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Honestly,
the majority of the members of the NRA are just a bunch of fucking fuds.
yes.
They're a bunch of boomer fuds that think, oh, well, you don't need an AR-15 to hunt. It's not about hunting, you fucking fat ass.
Can I say something real quick, Erica?
Have at it.
Oh, what are you gonna do? Fight the military with their A-10s and drones with your little pea shooting AR-15?
Their family lives next to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really a good one, but don't they make a good point?
Ask the
No.
Taliban.
We also have to remember, though, the Taliban were being fought by an army that was half-assing everything. Pardon my French.
All right.
To an extent.
And if you bring up the Viet Cong, well, they had state support back in them.
All right.
Here's the thing, though. It doesn't matter what we would have thrown at the Taliban. These fuckers knew our tactics. They knew how we went through changing our tactics. Because we trained them in the 80s and 90s to fight the Russians. We gave them our playbook, and our playbook hasn't changed. And so it's very, very doubtful that a war between the military and the U.S. Citizenry is going to go well for the U.S. military.
I kind of doubt that because they have atomic weapons, and remember what Swallowswell said.
Okay,
And
listen.
how easy would the American will break when a new sun detonates over Birmingham or New Orleans?
Listen here.
So
When
our
it- when
army is built from our citizenship, and there's a pretty supposition that you're making that members of the U.S. military are going to use nukes on their own citizens. And I actually don't know that you can count on soldiers to carry out orders against their own people like that.
I
You
sure
can't.
can.
Stoner is kind of both sidesing this at the moment. Oh, excuse me. I've been scarfing food down. No, when it comes to firing atomic weapons, who makes up the military? As Lizzie said, it's the U.S. people. It's an all volunteer service.
For now.
Well, even in the future, especially in the future, if it becomes like if they start drafting people again, there are people that are not going to join. They're not going to, pay attention to their draft notice, and even if they do, they are definitely not going to fire on the U.S. Citizenry. But
You forget one thing.
Go ahead.
What about all the millions of illegal immigrants that have come into this country? Do they have any allegiances to their fellow citizens, to American citizens?
A lot of the illegal immigrants that have come into this country over the border already have family in this country, first of all. Especially like when you look at south of our border at like Mexico, which we used to have a little bit more of an open border at. So like if, for example, you took a bunch of people who are here illegally from Mexico, you probably have the same problem. Bomb New York. My granny lives in New York.
New York, New Jersey, there is a huge Puerto Rican and Mexican population in New York and New Jersey. No, but when it comes to when it comes to nukes and the military, to an extent, Stoner's right, because it's not the lowly private that's going to be pushing the fucking button. It's officers that have been indoctrinated to believe that they are better than the lowly privates, the enlisted men and women.
And where does
of
their
course,
grandmother live?
well, that's the whole thing is officers generally as a whole have been taught casualties of war, whereas enlisted men and women haven't. Enlisted men and women are much better at separating out foreigners from U.S. citizens when it comes to their own people that they grew up with, people that inhabit the place they came from. They can't separate out enemy from friendly. Whereas with an officer, anyone at the tip of their barrel, doesn't matter who it is, it's just another casualty. But even given that it would be an officer or a politician that's pushing the button, how many officers are there in the U.S. military?
I'm not sure.
Hold on, let me Google that. I've already got it looked up. I already got Google pulled up.
Oh, also,
How...
well, I know this is a bit of a cop out. I posted the image, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the "Don't make me tap the sign again" meme, but yeah, don't make me tap the sign again. If you wouldn't mind sharing this image on the screen, I think it makes my point better than I
yes,
can make
I've read the. Well, you've read this one on air. We're not gonna do it again, but yes.
I'm kind of looking up some numbers for you.
Well, I already know. There is one officer for about every 80 military enlisted service members. Which means if, for any reason, a nuke does get fired, those officers that are in the bunker that push the button better be damn sure that installation that they're on doesn't have an acetylene torch, because there are service members, especially engineering service members, that are going to cut through the door and kill them. So there may be a nuke that gets fired. I would grant anyone that, but it's going to stop at one. Because as soon as that button gets pushed, every single officer in support of pushing that button is done.
And that's always been the flaw of raising your army through your citizens. If you have to use it against your own citizens, is that it's made up of your own citizens.
Well, here's the thing, though. Whenever that does go off, Are they going to tell the enlisted that they're fighting against their own citizens? No, they're not. They're going to tell them that they're fighting against terrorists.
Listen,
It's going to be a lot harder to make that case when you've just evaporated one of your own cities.
yeah,
No,
it's
this is before that.
we're talking about present day, where communications are much more difficult for a government to shut down between its citizens. If a nuke got launched, there's a guarantee that the people that are being targeted are going to know about it, and they're going to get word out, and it's going to spread like a wildfire. Within half an hour, huh?
Oh, what's this mythical internet kill switch I've been hearing about?
There is no mythical internet kill switch.
Every U.S. citizen, for the most part, is walking around with a video camera attached to the internet. Like, we would know what happened right away.
It was only a couple hours between when George Floyd died and the entire U.S. started fucking protesting.
Yes. Mostly peacefully.
Mostly peaceful.
Yeah, fiery but mostly peaceful.
Of course.
It was a very warm, peaceful protest.
I think that was all rigged.
Let
I
me...
had just moved out of Portland when that happened. I was living in Philadelphia, and I was watching all of my friends not do things. I don't know anybody that lit a police station on fire. I'm going to stop talking.
You should have stayed for the Chaz and the Chop. I heard...
I honestly, I'm so jealous.
I think they could have used your help since you can actually grow fucking vegetables.
Right before I left, I was talking with members of like Portland Antifa because I was drinking at the same bar as them, and I distinctly remember being told to show up for a meeting somewhere, and then casually, one of the guys turning around and being like, "Do you have any long socks?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I thought we were going out into the woods, and he goes, "Good, put a brick in one of them when you come out."
That's a little bit crazy.
It's
Gutter
by
nails
far
would've
my
been
favorite thing
better.
somebody's ever told me to do.
Gutter nails would have been better. Just saying.
I don't criticize the crazy things people say to me. I just appreciate them and repeat them later.
Well, then you'll enjoy what I just posted.
Very nice.
Okay, now I'm full.
Yeah, I know we're halfway
that
through
took
this,
way too long.
but did we ever finish talking about that one Steven Crowder creep?
I'm leaving that simmer on the the back burner for a little bit. I want to see what comes out of the next couple of months as it refers to the civil suit against Hillary Crowder by the Louder with Crowder company.
I need to look into that. You've intrigued me. They're suing her?
Oh yeah. Which is
okay.
which is why she was talking about how she doesn't have the money to fight to pay for the lawyers, even though she's getting $25,000 a month from the estate to pay for the divorce.
Ah.
She's trying to pay all of her
tactic
lawyers.
of using the courts to further abuse women needs to come to an end at some point. And I realize I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but it's been too many men in power using the law to try to silence women or punish them further because they didn't put up with their bullshit. And that sounds like another one of those incidents to me.
when it comes to Hillary Crowder and Steven Crowder, I have zero doubt in my mind that Steven Crowder is an abusive piece of shit. He may have never laid a hand on her. That doesn't matter. He's still an abusive piece of shit. You do not have to hit someone to be an abuser.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's about my read of him too.
In other news, a bunch of people asked me today if we had been hit by tornadoes.
Oh, it is
Were there,
Iowa.
yeah, any tornado warnings out there?
There are, well, I mean, tornado watches for my area of Iowa are more likely in the winter than they are in the spring and summer. Although it does appear that we have a tornado watch for the next 6 hours. So until midnight tonight. But yesterday, there were a bunch of tornadoes that touched down on the border between Nebraska and Iowa. And so a bunch of people were like, "Oh my God, are you okay? I hope you didn't get hit by one of the tornadoes." Bitch, I'm on the other side of the fucking state.
Fair enough.
I imagine if you got hit by a tornado, that's what you would lead with.
Yeah, I'd
If I
imagine
got hit
that.
by a tornado, you'd never shut my ass up about it. I'd be like, y'all, you need to listen to what happened to me last week. I got hit by a fucking tornado.
Well, you know, funny thing about tornadoes, my mom was sucked up in one while she was in a camper once.
Really?
Yeah,
Oof.
that was a very traumatic childhood experience.
Talk about brown pants moment.
What happened? Did the camper make it out of the tornado intact, or?
Oh no. No. It picked up the camper with her in it. It spun around a bit. It flew off about 400 yards and then got dropped. And yeah, like I said, very traumatic experience for my mother. She does not like driving in storms. And she will be the first one in the bathroom when a tornado siren goes off.
How do you survive
Yeah.
being sucked up in a tornado? Like I would have thought that would be
Tornadoes
more-
have done some weird stuff.
Luck. It is only luck. If
Which-
if you can put yourself in something heavy in a lower category tornado like an EF1 or an EF2, if you're in a car, a camper, an RV, a truck, you could just possibly survive.
How
Can
bad?
I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
All right, you're familiar with NASCAR, right?
Yes.
And you know some of their tracks are located in areas that are prone to tornadoes.
Uh-huh.
And if they're having a race and a tornado gets, and they're put under a tornado warning, those drivers are instructed to stay inside their vehicles
Because they're
they
heavy as
can.
fuck.
And the way they're also built, those drivers would be safer in their cars if it was
Uh-huh.
like it picked up and thrown around.
That's how those cars can do 200 miles an hour. They're extremely aerodynamic.
And strong.
Oh, and Lizzie over here is struggling not to make Wizard of Oz jokes.
It's because it's your mom. It would be appropriate to be like, and how did Judy feel afterwards?
You got the name
God.
very close. You got the name very close.
Oh, here's one for you. Okay, here's one for you. Imagine Wizard of Oz, but it's Jeff Gordon that gets transported over to Oz.
All I know is that Erica's mom is an honorary princess in Oz for life over this.
Follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah. Did she get out of the tornado relatively unscathed, or was she like? pretty
Yeah,
badly
so
hurt?
no broken bones, just some scraped up skin. From what I understand, she doesn't really like to talk about it. I only remember this from my grandmother talking about it before I developed a seething, burning dislike for her. And as I've said in the past, I don't hate people. Generally. It's very difficult to make me hate you, but I hate my grandmother.
Understood.
Go pack myself a bowl. There's already one in there. It's like magic.
Okay. Someone was saying something about tornadoes. I was saying something about tornadoes. So, oh yeah. You can survive a tornado if you're in something heavy, and it's an EF1, EF2. The higher up in the enhanced scale you go, the heavier the object must be and the deeper it must be buried.
People have jumped into wells.
Yeah, so
Yes,
probably
people,
not much of a chance of surviving like an F5 tornado.
very, very low.
Not
Yeah.
ideal, but saved their ass.
There have been people that have jumped into wells, as Coda just told me, that have been able to survive, and that's mostly because it's quite literally a surface phenomenon. It can't reach below the surface. It can kind of dig up the top layer.
Right.
But
We used to have a tornado season growing up, and we just went in the basement, and we were always fine.
well, the nice thing about living in the suburbs and the urban areas, it's very unlikely for tornadoes to hit. I don't fucking know why. But if a tornado does hit, it doesn't come anywhere near the inner parts of the city. It's going to cut through, a swath in the more underpopulated areas. So if a tornado comes through eastern Iowa and say it hits one of the bigger cities like Cedar Rapids, it's not going to hit the center of Cedar Rapids. It's going to hit the southwest side near Johnson County. So it's more likely to hit Swisher than it is to hit Cedar Rapids. Or it might hit the northeast side where Marion is. Or, it might hit the northwest side where Palo is. It's not going to hit the inner populated areas. The strongest a tornado gets in those areas is just a dust devil.
The derecho.
Well, the derecho was not a tornado. That was a fucking hurricane.
That was a fuck you from Richard.
So, a couple years ago, I think me and Dale have talked about it. Not on air before. Iowa and Illinois suffered from what's called a derecho.
A what?
It's a derecho. It is a land hurricane. So, hurricanes are known for actually developing over the ocean and losing power as they go further and further inland. Whereas a derecho is a very similar phenomenon. It has a rotating center and, a storm rotating around it. but it develops over land. So, back in 2020, August of 2020, the city of Cedar Rapids was hit by a derecho. Let me see if I can get a better... Okay. The city of Cedar Rapids was hit by a derecho, bringing wind speeds of 140 miles per hour and causing widespread devastation throughout the community. There was $7.5 billion of damage caused by the derecho between South Dakota and Ohio, ranking it the most costly thunderstorm in U.S. history.
Damn.
While the storm was overwhelming and life-changing for many, it also reinforced the resilient nature of the people who live in Cedar Rapids, experiencing devastating and record-breaking flood events in 2008 and 2016. They're forgetting the flood of 1993. And if no one knows about the Great Flood of 1993, the Great Flood of 1993, or the Great Mississippi and Missouri Rivers Flood of 93, was a flood that occurred in the Midwestern United States along the Mississippi and Missouri rivers and their tributaries from April to October of 1993.
It's a long flood.
Uh-huh. It rained for more than a month. I quite literally remember this flood. Record flood levels were widespread along the Cedar and Des Moines and Iowa rivers as early as March 31st. River levels would wreak havoc on the Mississippi as well as early as May 7th. Millions of dollars worth of cargo was already backed up on barges up and down the river. Let's see. The rains that wouldn't go away. It wouldn't stop raining. 25 years later, that's the most common recollection among those who endured the flood, actually the floods of 1993. John Ludden, now the Coralville mayor, who was Iowa City's transit director at the time, said the 1993 flood were the first time water climbed over the top of the Coralville Reservoir. It went back down relatively quickly. In a few days, it had receded, but we had a repeat of it. People were hammered a second time. It was physically and mentally disabling to put in that much effort and have to deal with the disaster to begin with and try to recover and get back to normal, only to experience it a second time. Lynn County Supervisor James Hauser, who served on the board in 1993, recalls trepidation as talk of flooding filled the community. We were really all kind of nervous about what the river was going to do. Ultimately, the Cedar River in Cedar Rapids crested at a little more than 19 feet, far below the record-setting deluge on 2008. Still, flood stage is exceeded above 12 feet. So, my first experience with a flood was the flood of 93. It was just before I was about to start elementary school. And it was the second time the floodwater had gone over the Coralville, the Coralville whatever, the reservoir. My father and my mother had bought a van for family trips. My parents loaded me and my brother into the van pulled one VHS tape, and then took that tape with us in the van to where my dad worked in downtown Cedar Rapids. My dad put the tape in the VCR and watched as the floodwaters went up and nearly reached into the store that he was working at. But it was the highest place that he had access to.
Wow.
The trailer park we were living in flooded twice that year. And I remember both times my father carrying me through the flood. And then only 15 years later, I did the exact same for the girl I was dating. I forcibly pulled her father out of their house, and I grabbed her sister and her brother, and I carried them out of the floodwaters to safety. Her father didn't want to come out of the house.
What was his reasoning for not wanting to come out of the house?
He thought
Did you
it
think
would.
he'd be safer?
He thought the house was just going to be fine. But I had told him, as the waters were starting to rise, that the foundation was cracked. This house will not survive the flood, and it didn't. Last year, me and Koda went driving around that area, and that they had completely rebuilt that house. It was torn down after the flood because the foundation had completely shifted. Part of the house had been on its side after the flood, and so it was completely torn down. The foundation was rebuilt, and they put a new house on it. Different family lives there now. But after the flood, the area, that major area, was renamed from Czech Village to New Bohemia.
That's interesting. Are there a lot of Germans there?
No, there's not.
Why did they name it New Bohemia?
Because most of the
love the word Bohemia.
most of the hippies of Iowa reside around that area.
Ah,
I'd have named it New Roma. Just saying.
Well, but the bohemian lifestyle is more than just being German. It's it's pretty much anyone that has romanticized the movie Moulin Rouge.
ah, yes.
The bohemian lifestyle is all about life, love, and living free, which is kind of a hippie thing.
Yep.
Not that those aren't nice things to want to live by and live for, but there's much more to life than just freedom. Because you can't just live free, you also have to fight to live free.
I was recently learning about, I want to say, was it Oscar Wilde? One of the older authors, and the belief of, like, it's not enough to just live free. Like, you've also got to, like, live a beautiful life, because beauty in itself is also worth it. And And like I think that that's the component that makes the freedom worth fighting for.
I would agree. Me and you were actually talking the other day about why all of these people are blocking me on Twitter. And I was
Yes, all the like super. Every somebody that's blocked you has been somebody that I collected arguing with turfs.
I I I know that your objectives really align closely with mine. You are one of the best anarchists to have in my corner. The simple fact of the matter is, people don't understand, and I know that you do, but a lot of the people that you've collected on Twitter don't understand that you can't just live life and expect to be safe, because life is inherently dangerous. We live in a universe that is 99.9% vacuum that's trying to kill us at all points in time.
Talk about a moody bomb ready to go off. Freaking
Yeah, there's no guarantees of waking up the next day, and a lot of people act like they're entitled to sunrise, and they're just not.
Someone could launch a Stargate into our sun at any moment,
God, I wish.
and
Oh, I know this, me. I know what you're referencing to.
only black hole.
and of course, let's not forget, someone could establish a a a wormhole via two stargates that goes through a sun and carries a heavy element into it.
Oh, yeah, I saw that episode too.
Let's
When do
just
we get
make
the little
stars
gray
go
alien?
supernova.
When do I get my Thor?
When
I
do you
want
get your Thor? Little gray aliens. They are not green, they are gray.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one too.
It's what I do.
You're not wrong that the Great Pyramid of Egypt could, in fact, be a landing pad for spaceships, and we'll never know until the alien race that used to enslave us comes back for us.
Yes.
Actually,
Of
you're
course.
thinking of the Goa'uld. The Asgard are not so much
I
in
am
the slaving
absolutely
business.
thinking of the Goa'uld. I cited the Asgard first, and then I moved over to the Goa'uld. But I did know that I was talking about different races. I am slightly Stargate
Dear
obsessed. It's my comfort
God.
food when I'm sick.
We all have to sit down and watch Stargate together at some point.
Anytime.
Uh,
Never have I said yes to something quicker, but yeah, anytime you guys want to watch Stargate episodes together, I am so down. Also, if you want to watch some Xena, down for that too.
which
Oh, the
you
original
have
muscle
noticed.
mommy.
Which you have noticed I put up on the server.
What you guys don't know about me is that growing up, I had bangs and brown hair, and I fucking hated my haircut until Lucy Lawless came out, and all of a sudden I was like, no, I'm a bad bitch too.
Oh, Lord. I just thought about this. We were talking about Twitter a minute ago. Have you seen these idiots on Twitter that are saying if you like a muscle woman, you're gay?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, men are always trying to tell each other that they're gay for not liking what they like. It's so weird how certain men think that their penis dictates all other men's penis, or penises, whatever.
I think the most ridiculous one I saw recently was, well, obviously from one Andrew Tate, who tweeted out that, like, enjoying having sex with women is gay.
That was
Yeah.
the best thing. So I have been worried about Andrew Tate and his like the way that young men don't seem to recognize what a dangerous shitheel he is. And then he's gonna go ahead and tell them that it's gay to have sex. Please, Tate, please get rid of all of your teenage boys by telling them that they can't have sex at all because it's gay. Like, thank you for breaking up your own cult. I appreciate it.
Here's the thing,
Yes.
though. There's still going to be people out there that believe him and are still
So
going to follow him no matter what.
so it
Girlfriend,
was
if
it
his
was
cult stops having sex with women, it is only for the best.
it was just a few days ago where Andrew Tate posted on Twitter saying sex is for making children. Any man who has sex with women because it feels good is gay. Oh, my pee feels good. This is great. In fact, if you are 40 with less than 5 children, you're probably gay. All that feel-good pee sex and hardly any genetic legacy. Go fuck yourself, Andrew Tate.
I do agree with him though, because I'm 40 and I only have one kid, and I am probably gay.
I thought we had settled on your bi, just more femme-leaning.
Oh, but when it comes to things like this, I am very willing to make the gay joke.
What, the Schrodinger joke?
Listen, I am a lesbian if it's funny, and I'm bisexual if that's funnier.
Need I also re-explain the Schrodinger's sexuality?
Please do.
Oh, God. Okay, so you've heard of Schrodinger's cat, right?
Yeah, the one that's not dead until you look at it.
Yeah. Well, that thought experiment didn't actually say it's dead, it's alive until you look at it. It said the way the thought experiment was posed was you put a cat in a box with a poison tablet or, poison food, whatever poison you want. And until you open the box, it is both dead and alive until you look at it, at which point it could be either dead or alive, but it can only be one. This was to explain quantum physics, specifically explaining the states of light, because light acts as both a wave and a particle, but it can only act as one when you're observing it. It can only act as a wave when you're observing it, or it can only act as a particle when you're observing it. It cannot act as both when it's under observation. So, now we move on to Schrodinger's sexuality, which is bisexuality. At any given time, when you're not looking at a bisexual person, they are both gay and straight. But once you look at them, depending on the point in time at which you look at them, they are one or the other. They are either dating someone of the same sex or they are dating someone of the opposite sex. It's the quantum physics of sexuality.
I was talking to the asshole that was next door the other day, and he informed me that I was straight because I'd had sex with a man, because he was like, dick is dick. And I was like, yeah, okay, but pussy is pussy, and I've eaten a lot of it.
I got a politically incorrect question I want to ask about the rad femme turf lesbian, the one with the funny Italian sounding name.
What?
The Aurelia Scaparelli or whatever, however the hell you say her name.
Ariel,
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
All right.
What
Now
about
she
her?
said that she. Okay. Yes.
Huh?
Okay.
No,
Now she
please
says.
continue.
Okay. Now she says she does not like a certain part of male anatomy. Correct. She
Yes.
said that in one of her Jubilee videos. Yet, what makes yet I'm pretty darn sure she uses rubber synthetic man.
Yeah,
And if she
here's
doesn't like the real thing, then what's the difference between using a fake one?
It doesn't have a man attached to it. All
Bingo.
right, so I
No, I was just wanting to be a
I
smart
would
aleck
like
towards
to point
her.
out that I know lesbian couples that strap on and go at it, but they do it in a girly way. It's girl dick when they do it.
here's the thing about Ariel. She's not a TERF. She
Thought she
has
was.
she has sided with TERFs in the past, but her view on trans people is much more nuanced than the average TERF.
I thought she was a turf.
She has in fact advocated for trans people who have transitioned, and in fact said that for all intents and purposes, a trans person that has finished their transition and is perceived by those around them as a trans person, if they're, a trans woman, can in fact be a lesbian. She has said that. I'm fairly certain that she put that on Twitter too.
I missed that one.
I bet her mentions were fun after that.
Oh, she got fucking railed by TERFs.
They're never as mean to anybody as they are to women because they're a woman harassing cult.
I'll tell you something else too. Haven't you ever noticed how they always go after trans women and not trans men?
Yeah, okay, so that is some fucking paternalistic patriarchy shit. It's because they think that trans men are like lost little girls who are just confused and they like treat them as lesser than children. It is super offensive. They're just poor little tomboys who went a little too far.
Yeah, well, and that's
What Chloe Cole would probably say.
That's one of the problems with TERFs is they automatically look at men as predators, or anyone with a penis as a predator, and anyone that was born with a vagina as not a predator. But if anything, we have demonstrated in the past decade that women can be just as predatory as men. It's just not on the same scale.
Yep.
I would like to, and this is in defense of my gender, women are fucking vicious, actually. And the reason why men have never fully subjugated us is because we fucking fight back. And it's absolutely ridiculous to think that human beings that women are, like, who have survived with oppressive conditions all over the world to grow up and raise strong, beautiful daughters who have mouthy opinions of their own, are sometimes like overboard about it, or can't be mean or villains or awful. And like this idea that every single woman is full of sugar and sunshine is just, it's offensive to the women that fight back too.
I completely understand and I completely agree. I've been a victim of a woman. I've actually been a victim of several women throughout my life. It is not just men. I completely understand. I agree. Women can be extremely vicious, and I saw it a lot when I was in high school. The shit that girls would do to each other was fucking nasty.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and when we get, and it's not to say that it's not sometimes justified, but like, if you see an all-female workplace and like there's just one dude in it and he steps out of line, like sometimes you can see just how cruel women are, because they will rip that one poor dude apart like he's a gazelle that's wandered into a herd of lions.
Well, it's as I like to say, it's the 21st century. Feminism has won. Men and women are equal now.
Be right back.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you about feminism winning when Afghani women are being stoned to death in 2024.
I was talking about in the West, not the East.
Well, so here's my thing. If feminism had won and men really believed that women were equal and women were being stoned to death for shit in Afghanistan, do you feel like men would give a shit?
Here's the
Well,
thing. Here's
if they thought men and women were equal, and I mean, they don't generally give a shit about men being killed in those places. So why would they give a shit
Yeah,
about
who
women
gives
being
a-
killed in those places?
No, you know what? You had a point there
Exactly.
that
Who
they
gives
lack
a-
empathy for the men in those places too. That is in fact true, and I, for some reason, thought that you're right. They don't give a shit about the men there either.
You're applying Western mindsets to people that don't think like us, don't want to think like us.
here's the thing about feminism when it comes to the West. Feminism, just like any political belief system, goes around in a pendular circle, not a one-axis pendulum, but a two-axis pendulum, in which it will just go around in a circle. It will change, come back around, change more, come back around, change even more, and come back around. It will always come back to dead center, which is where we were before feminism took over. Now men are trying to assert dominance again, and we're seeing the rhymes of the original feminist movement cropping back up, the original belief systems. So there was a wave just after the 90s, so the early 2000s into the mid 2010s, fourth wave feminism. That shit was toxic as fuck.
And that is what ruined a lot of men into the red pill movement.
Are we talking about girl boss feminism?
Yes and no. Girl boss feminism did evolve off of fourth wave, but it's less popular, or it was less popular. Fourth wave feminism was all about making sure women are in charge in their lives and no men are allowed into it. No men are allowed to be around women, period. Fourth wave feminism was heavily dictated by lesbians within the community. And
In
know
other
this is a-
words, in
and-
other words, it wasn't to have men and women being partners. It was about having women with their boot on men's necks.
yeah, so any woman that said I want to be a housewife was shouted down by fourth wave feminists, even though that was her choice. And now
This is not
now,
a part I've ever been a part of.
yeah, no, I know you haven't. Which
Oh no, I
which
was just stating it for the feminist haters in the audience. Never have I been a part of putting my boot on men's neck. Not to say that I wouldn't if he paid me.
which is part
Oh.
of the reason why I say we're starting to circle back to the original ideas of feminism and equality, because there are men trying to fight to get power back, and there are women that are just trying to fight for equality, in the idea that they just want the choice. They want the choice and will accept that a woman can make her own choice. They won't shout her down simply just because she wants to be a housewife and submit to a husband. If that's her choice, that's her choice. But she had that choice, and she's the one that made it.
This is a little bit off topic, but before we go too much further about the whole separating from men thing, I was just reminded that there's a part in the Bible where it says that when women are on their periods that they're supposed to go stay away from men and not talk to them, and I'm low-key convinced that was actually written by women.
It's
Probably
possible.
was.
There's nothing that I want less when I'm on my period than to hear men talk at me.
Listen, the
And
New
there's nothing,
Testament.
and there's nothing that men want more than to have a hormonal woman riding the cotton pony as far away from him as possible. So it's a win-win.
There,
Now, I don't think that women are that unreasonable on their periods, having been around a lot of them. I think that men are just really annoying. That's a joke from the woman's perspective. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not saying that you're actually annoying.
Take it.
well, listen, when your hormones are out of balance, and anything could set you off, yeah, men are going to be annoying, and it's not because they're trying to. It's just how you're going to perceive people around you. It's fucking valid.
I just don't believe that they're not trying to be annoying, Erica. Like, they know I'm on my period. Why are they even speaking? Anyway, sorry.
Well, some
but,
of
like,
them
that's
might know.
That's my like historical conspiracy theory is that women wrote that. They were like, no, we get to go on our period and sit away from you all.
But
When,
oh yeah, what we were talking about earlier, fourth wave feminism and stuff.
Uh-huh.
You know that there is what fueled Andrew Tate's movement.
I know.
I mean, it just didn't come out of the void.
No, it didn't just come out of the void. Nothing does. I absolutely dislike Tim Pool, but Tim Pool has been right for a long time when he says history rhymes. History has rhymed again. We're at the beginning again, where men are now trying to take back, well, they're trying to take charge back. They're trying to be the men of the society. They want to be the ones in charge. I get it. But we're talking about a world that needs to understand it's not about who's in charge. It's about how cooperative and how competitive we can be.
Do you really think that these people are going to listen to that argument?
No, I don't, because John Nash's economic philosophy has been ignored by pretty much everyone.
So I want to put in an aspect of this conversation about the gender wars that isn't in here yet. And I'd like to put in the violent pornography that men consume. And I'm going to go ahead and admit to being a little bit of a hoe. I'm adopted. And when I got out into the sexual marketplace, as the incels like to call it, I knew damn well that I was not going to be able to have a good relationship. And I really enjoyed my 20s. And sometime around 28 or 29, men started putting their hands around my throat without asking. And it's really fueled when you hear me talk negatively about men. My relationships with men started very positive and equal. And over the years, with the propagation of porn on the internet and the ease of having access to violent porn, I have noticed that men are very, very quickly to put their hands around my throat and to do other violent things to me, so much so that I will not have sex with men anymore.
I'm not
So-
gonna lie, porn
So it,
has been a really big problem in that regards.
well,
Yep.
what came out in your late 20s? This was about 12 years ago, right?
Yeah, about 12 years ago, and that was when you started seeing like Panel on Reddit prop up and the near rape subreddits.
Look out
That was also when beating women was popular on Reddit.
Look out outside of the internet. What came out?
Oh, you're gonna have to tell me. I don't have a timeline.
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey.
I thought
Now-
50 Shades of Grey was more popular with women than it was with men.
It was.
I don't think that you can blame 50 Shades of Grey because
I'm
that's
listen,
not men. the pornographers of the 80s specifically said that they started showing violence towards women because they knew that the average man wanted to put women down. And the issue with pornography getting violent has been on a steady, more violent curve since then.
Yeah,
And
no,
the way that the internet's been distributed online is what's allowed it to transfer to being all hardcore.
I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is the rate at which it's increased was slightly influenced by the release of the 50 Shades of Grey books and the movies. I'm not saying that it was a direct influence on men. What I am saying is there was a huge slew of women that immediately got into kink because of these books. And the men that they bedded weren't being taught by these girls safe, sane, and consensual sex. And so men started taking those ideas that they were given by their partners and just putting it into practice with other partners, not realizing that there is an entire lifestyle built around this, and you have to understand kink and the lifestyle before you actually put these things into practice. Because just putting your hand around someone's throat is a dangerous proposition.
When I asked about it, the guy told me he saw it in a porn. Which I'm not saying that you're not somewhat right about women being more likely to consent to it and put up with it because they thought that 50 Shades of Grey was like, I think monkey see, monkey do. And I also think monkey doesn't usually read.
Like I said, I'm not saying that it had a direct influence on men, but there was a huge explosion a decade ago because of the movies and the books, and it was because of all of these women that read the books and watched the movies and thought, "Oh, hey, it's going to be fun." But they didn't research kink. They didn't dive into the community and learn safe, sane, and consensual. And so all of these young men who are now in their mid to late 20s, or even older now, probably in their mid to late 30s for some of them, they never
I'm
learned.
40, so like, I think it's older than that too.
Yeah,
because when I'm trying to think of the age of the last guy that tried this shit on me, and he was older than me. He was like 50.
Well, I'm just going to say these couple of things. I remember going into Fantasyland not long after that movie released, and they had an entire section of the store dedicated to nothing but 50 Shades of Grey stuff.
Is Fantasyland a porn shop or like
yes. It's a place where you can buy stuff to spice up bedroom life.
It's a sex shop.
Yes, exactly. Just
an adult shop.
Also, yes, an adult shop.
Fun fact.
It's an adult shop. And also, 50 Shades of Grey, the only reason it's considered romantic is because the dude is rich. Had he been poor, it would have been a Criminal Minds episode.
I agree. And also, well, because it came out of like the it's so funny because when you're like ignore internet culture, like 50 Shades of Grey came out of internet culture though. Like that was completely born of internet culture, and like
I know it was.
all of the fan fiction and shit that like women were writing online. And I think that the things that women are turned on by is also directly influenced by the pornography that's available online too, because we're all kind of grown up in the same sexual hotbox nowadays. It's not like when I was growing up, we had like the sex show on HBO every once in a while, and then one of your friends got his hands on his dad's like Playboy magazines before the internet, you know? So it was a completely different landscape.
Or one of his snuff tapes.
Yeah, and so like boys and girls weren't getting the same sexual background back then because we weren't getting our pornographic material from the same places. Girls were reading like romance novels that they got off their auntie's shelf that were a little bit racy, for example.
Well, and here's the thing: if people are going to continue to consume porn and quote unquote romance novels that are extremely violent, people really need to start diving into the kink community and learning about safe, sane, and consensual, learning soft limits, hard limits. It's not a crime to like certain things, but it is a crime to just expect that everyone you're going to encounter sexually is going to be into the things that you're into.
Specifically, if you're into choking people.
Yes.
Oh shit! I should have never
PSA
looked
for
this
anybody
up.
listening, by the way, never put your hands around somebody's neck unless they've asked you to, and even then, don't do it because you could kill them.
We talk about consent in the kink community, which means these sorts of things need to be discussed beforehand.
100%. I was just saying that one explicitly because it is my pet peeve that people do, like, because it's so dangerous.
Ruby is.
What
over
were we
here
talking about
whining
though?
at
We were
me.
talking about like Andrew Tate and like all the factors that gave rose to him. We weren't just gonna blame fourth wave feminism because there is the pornography thing, and then there's also online culture, and there's also like the fact that he can like the internet gave people a platform that would have never been able to have one previously.
Yeah, Z makes a good point in the chat.
It doesn't help that there's so many songs about beating and raping people. I agree, Z.
Oh, for
And
real.
I also agree with Stoner. No kink shaming on the promenade.
Sorry, I'm a kink shamer.
That is well, you are not a kink shamer.
Well, speaking of which,
The violent music is like, so I think that the violent music is like a symptom of what's the underturn in our society, because people write their feelings about what's going on and it comes out through music, but like the music doesn't necessarily cause it. It's an expression of like what people are seeing and feeling around them.
Mm-hmm. I honestly don't think you're a kink shamer. If someone wants to be choked, would you shame them for that?
I'd probably tell them not to throw their own life away. Like honestly, because it's not the ease it is to accidentally kill somebody by choking them is so high. Like I would be unable, like, I mean, like, whatever, like, go ahead and like die if you really want to, I guess, but like I would be unable to stop myself from telling them that it's very dangerous.
If
Well,
you
there are
knew,
techniques, right?
yes. So hold on. If you knew the person and their partner, and you knew that the partner knew blood chokes, not air chokes, and knows, and them and their partner knows safe, sane, and consensual, I would still say do what you want, be cautious, and understand the risks. If you want to be choked, it's your death on your own hands, but I'm not going to tell them not to.
Oh, I'm not going to stop somebody from doing what they want to do. I'm just not going to co-sign it.
All right, but just for the record, it's relatively safe if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, yes, you could very well kill someone. And
yes, which is
the rule of thumb is do not push down with your palm. If you want, squeeze with your fingers.
Which is
Not-
why I
but-
had specifically brought up blood chokes.
Yes. Right, and also you could crush someone's windpipe if you're like choking them by pushing down with your palm against their throat, but you're not going to
Yeah,
crush their windpipe if you just squeeze with your fingers.
Airplay is much more dangerous than when you're doing actual airplay. If you're doing the carotid artery on the sides and compressing that artery, it can be much safer, but there's still an inherent risk. If you cut off blood flow to the brain for too long, hey, they're a vegetable now.
And that's just
Oh.
exactly why men need to keep their fucking hands off my neck.
Erica, remember
Yes.
that military cadence? My girl's a
It's a
vegetable.
Yes. Yeah, I remember it too well, along with a little yellow birdie with a little yellow bill.
I never heard that one.
It goes, a little yellow birdie with a little yellow bill landed on my windowsill. I gave it a piece of bread, and I smashed it on its little bitty head.
Ah. The one I heard was similar to that. I looked outside. What did I see? A little bird. He looked at me. I lured him close with a piece of bread, and then I smashed his little head. The moral of the story is, if you want some head, you need some bread.
Jesus Christ.
You know, as fucked up as that is, that does remind me that we were going to talk about that Christy Numb bitch.
Oh yes.
Well, given the fact that we've got only 5 minutes left, let's go ahead and try to get into this.
Yeah, so I think that she should not be allowed to own dogs ever again. Like, her confession in her book should take her off of being able to buy an animal.
Yes.
I had actually had that pulled up, and then we got tracked onto a much different path. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this up. So this is a post by the Deaf Libertarian. Says, rest in peace, Cricket. I don't believe he was dangerous. All dogs are trainable. To lead him to a gravel pit to be shot is just disgusting, especially if they clearly have the money and means to put him to sleep peacefully if he was rabid. He was not a good hunting dog is not a good reason. Christy Noam is a piece of shit. I agree. This is a very beautiful and wonderful dog. He was only 14 months old.
So, my adopted father grew up on a farm, and before we did this podcast, I went over to him and I said, "Hey, would you shoot a dog for not being a good hunting dog?" And he said, "Well, I've shot a lot of dogs in my time." And he went over a lot of circumstances in which he would shoot a dog. And finally, I said, "But Dad, would you kill your own animal at 14 months old if it wasn't a good hunter?" And he said, "No, I just rehome it."
Okay, so the circumstances upon which the dog was shot are that on the way home, the dog escaped Christie's truck and attacked a local family's chickens, grabbing one chicken at a time, crunching it to death with one bite, then dropping it to attack another. When Noam tried to grab the dog, she wrote that it whipped around to bite her. Now, at 14 months old, there is a high likelihood that a dog, when you give it a toy or you give it food, it may be food sensitive, in which it will actually snap at you because it has something in its mouth and it doesn't want to drop it. This is a common thing for dogs, especially at a young age.
I currently
Because-
own a 14-month-old hound dog or around that. And she's a nipper. Like, she doesn't bite, but we're getting it out of her. She's tamed down a lot. When we first got her, you couldn't stop this fucker from biting you. And now, and I say that in a loving way, but now she's a little over a year, and we've had her neutered, and she now, you can take things away from her, but we've really had to work with her. And what I got from Christy's post was that it doesn't appear that she was putting the effort to tame down her dog and to train it. It sounds like she thought that you could just release a hound dog after older hound dogs and that the dog would just figure out how to hunt on its own, which is crazy.
Well, there is a method in training in which you take a dog around other trained dogs, and it will learn the behavior of those other trained dogs. But it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of training. Having one dog around another that's already trained is not going to automatically train the dog. I had posted under this, to which you had already also commented to the asshole that said I needed to put down my dog. I said, I've had my youngest dog since he was about 3 months old. His first 2 years of life, he was extremely volatile, extremely aggressive towards me. I still have marks on my arms where he scratched and bit me. When I started speaking his language, baring my teeth, getting nose to nose with him, he stopped biting, and his growling went from anger to a way to communicate. Connection didn't happen overnight. Now when he's happy, he'll growl like a Rottweiler. There's more training to be done even though he's 4 years old. Giving up on a dog when they're barely a year old is despicable.
Agreed. And that guy, I do not believe has ever actually trained his own puppy, because at 14 months old, like I said, you expect a little bit of biting still.
Now, in this picture are my two dogs. And what's the big one doing? She is spooning the little one. And which
that's
one
an
is
adorable pic?
And which one was the aggressive one? It was the little one. This little brown marshmallow sausage of, a Chihuahua Beagle mix. He's got to have something else in him. But he is not a hateful dog. He has learned love, and he has learned that, he can trust the people that I trust. He's not just going to automatically bite someone because he's scared. He knows who I trust and knows that he's going to be safe around people I trust.
The other thing that's bothered me about this is that there's a world of difference between different types of dog bites. Like, there is a nip bite, there is a warning bite, and there is like viciously drawing blood. And I think that people are conflating viciously drawing blood with like any bite at all. But she didn't say that the dog drew blood when it bit her. She just said that the dog turned around and bit at her. And like,
yeah, which
you know
tells me that it didn't even connect. Now, both
doesn't count.
My first dog ever was a Yorkshire Terrier, and he was severely abused. He was my great uncle's dog after his wife had passed, and the maid that he had he was paying for her services. That woman abused that Yorkie. And so the first couple years of his life, he he was really aggressive and he bit me constantly. And we got it out of him, but he would still bite me. And it would only happen once we had gotten him calmed down, he would only bite me if I had woken him up during a nightmare. He would still draw blood, but I knew that he didn't mean to do it. Because he wasn't conscious. He wasn't conscious when he was doing it. He was reacting to his nightmare.
You know, growing up, my dad always would tell me, even a good dog will bite when it's scared. And
Mm-hmm.
I think about, like, you know, if we're going to be fair to our furry friends, like, you got to remember that too. Like, even good dogs sometimes bite.
And so Nugget here, he bit me constantly throughout the first 2 years of his life. I quite literally can just look at my arm and see scratches, look at my hands and see bite marks. And these are over 2 years old now. But I know that it was only because of it had to be some sort of issue with where he was born. I know it has to be. But he's no longer like that. He is like a big loving Rottweiler. And he's got the derp tongue, so we love him.
Mama's boy. He's a major mama's boy.
Oh yeah, he
My
is,
dad is currently in a battle with this big gray dog down the street who, he's wheel aggressive, but he's not like actually aggressive. Like if he catches the vehicle, he's not gonna like attack the person inside or anything. Anyway, my dad was driving his golf cart down the street and this dog went after him. And he's now convinced that this big dog, who's like the sweetest big dog I've ever met, like he sees my dog coming and he lays down in the middle of the street to wait for her. It's the cutest thing I ever saw. Anyway, he's now like convinced that this big dog is trying to kill him.
Oh no, he's not trying to kill him. He's trying to adopt
He
himself
just wants
out to you.
Lick the hell out of him.
Yeah, he's trying to adopt himself out to you. So the big one right here, she is an American blue nose pit. She will quite literally adopt herself out to you. If you have your car door open, especially if kids are in the back, she will just jump in and love all on them and say, "Okay, I'm ready to go for a ride. Where are we going?"
Tell them about the time you jumped into someone's truck.
So when I was still OTR, we got her back in 2019, right? Yeah, it was 2019. So we got her in 2019 from Coda's family because we figured she was going to pass away soon and she should get to experience life on the road. She should get to see some sights. And at one point we stopped at a rest area. I think it was in Tennessee. And we took Ruby out. Now, we don't leash her. She is a very obedient dog. But the one time that a family had their car door open on their truck with kids in the back, the kids were getting in one side and Ruby jumped in the other and just started loving all up on the kids. And we were freaking out that maybe the parents would think she was violent. They didn't. I was so happy that they didn't. But if you look at her just above her snout, on that right behind her snout, you'll see a little patch of skin. That's where she was hit by an animal control officer. That's a scar that she will have forever. She's 16 years old now.
My dog's a menace. So
I don't know.
We were out and I had her off the leash for a second because she had to go potty. She was like, I don't know, 6 months old. She was still like football size. and she had to go potty, and I thought she was still peeing on seats when she shouldn't back then. So I let her out for a second, and this lady she was jogging by, and my dog was like, "Oh, we're going for a run," and this lady was like, "Aggressive dog, she could have hurt me," and I'm like, "Lady, the like 4 or 5 month old dog is not going to hurt you."
Okay.
Anyway,
Well,
that's my menace.
we are running over, and with that, I'm going to say it is time to say goodnight to our viewers. It looks like we've got 2 at the moment. Since Molly has already left, I'm going to go ahead and start with our dirty Frenchy Frenchman from the current Soviet state of Kanukistan. Please say goodnight, Dale.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Been a nice show, and hopefully I'll see you all next week.
And then we will go ahead and move to our friend from the south, 2 states down from our other friend from the south. Please say goodnight, Lizzie.
Good night. And I should tell you, I'm actually from Mississippi.
Okay, well, but you're not living in Mississippi.
And never again, if God's willing.
It's too fucking humid there. And then, of course, we move to our also recently relocated friend from the south, living down yonder in Hicks, Redneckville. Please say good night, Stoner.
Good night, y'all. Have a good one.
And with that, we are at the show's end. I hope everyone enjoyed our constant ramblings over the past hour. We will see you next week. Please enjoy the music.